He is 31 years old, he barely gives interviews, and he still drives like a man who has never signed a contract worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Nikola Jokic has spent a decade convincing the basketball world that quiet hands can still move mountains, turning a 41st overall pick into 3 Most Valuable Player awards and a championship banner in Denver. What almost nobody outside Serbia has been tracking is the second scoreboard, the one where his money goes after the checks clear. Jokic does not chase red carpets. He does not launch tequila brands or courtside sneaker startups built to trend for a week and vanish before the season even ends. His investments look nothing like the modern athlete playbook, and that is exactly why they are worth unpacking. 5 moves stand out above the rest, each one revealing a different layer of a man who has been called the best passer of his generation and, increasingly, one of the most disciplined businessmen wearing a jersey. He built this portfolio the same way he reads a defense, slowly, patiently, and almost entirely out of sight, waiting for the right opening instead of forcing a play that looks good on camera. This is where the point guard trapped inside a giant's body hides his real playbook, and once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it in everything else he does off the court. Start with the least glamorous and most telling piece of the puzzle, the real estate. While teammates and rivals were buying beachfront property in Miami or hillside compounds in Los Angeles, Jokic was quietly buying land in a town most Americans could not find on a map. Sombor, Serbia, population under 50,000, is where he grew up sharing a small 2-bedroom apartment with his parents, his grandmother, and his 2 older brothers. Today he owns an apartment complex there, along with several plots of land where a sprawling family estate, closer to a working ranch than a mansion, has been under construction for years. Locals have described it as a mini ranch built from regional materials, designed for horses and family gatherings rather than showing off to neighbors. In Denver, the numbers look different. He paid $2.4 million for a home in 2019, then upgraded in late 2021, buying a 29-room mansion in Cherry Hills Village for $4.5 million, sitting on more than 12,000 square feet with a private theater and a full gym. On paper, it reads like typical athlete real estate. In practice, the split tells the real story. Every off-season, he flies home, not to a resort, but to the same soil that raised him. Analysts who track athlete spending patterns note that most stars concentrate their real estate around one glamorous zip code, doubling down on wherever their fame is loudest. Jokic spread his roots across 2 continents on purpose, treating Colorado as a workplace and Serbia as a foundation. That distinction matters more than the price tags. It is the first sign that his financial instincts run counter to the industry norm, prioritizing permanence over prestige, and a house he can hand down over a house built to impress a camera crew. Most athletes treat a hometown property as a photo opportunity, something to visit once a year for a charity event and a highlight package. Jokic treats his as infrastructure, the literal ground his family will stand on long after the final buzzer of his career sounds. Next comes a stake most fans mistake for a simple endorsement deal. Jokic has a long-running partnership with Somborak, a Serbian rakića producer named after his hometown province. On the surface, it looks like any other sponsorship, a face on a bottle in exchange for a check. Dig deeper and the relationship reads more like ownership by association. A Serbian superstar lending his name and equity interest to a regional brand that turns local pride into national distribution and, increasingly, international curiosity from fans abroad who want a taste of where he comes from. It sits alongside deals with Western Union, Panini, Expedia Group, and the apparel company 361 Degrees, which began manufacturing his signature Joker shoe line in December of 2023. Forbes estimates his combined endorsement income at roughly $8 million a year, a modest figure by superstar standards, and that modesty is deliberate. Jokic has never chased the biggest logo. He has chased the ones tied to something real, a rakića brand from his own province, a travel company that fits his low-key lifestyle, a card company built on legacy rather than hype. Where other players stack 5 or 6 flashy global partnerships hoping one goes viral, he stacks fewer, smaller, and more personal ones, betting on longevity over noise. It is brand building disguised as brand loyalty, and it has quietly made him one of the most efficient earners per endorsement dollar in the entire league. The third investment carries a twist nobody saw coming. For years, the Jokic family financially backed a hometown basketball club, rebranded in 2017 as KK Joker, competing in Serbia's second-tier league. It began as the club where a young, undersized, overlooked teenager first learned the game under its earlier name, long before anyone imagined he would become the best center on the planet. His brother, his longtime agent, and much of the extended family stayed involved as the years passed, an old-fashioned show of loyalty from a family that never forgot exactly where it started. Then, midway through a recent season, the club abruptly withdrew from its league and forfeited a playoff spot the team had already earned. Reports out of Serbia confirmed the reason. The Jokic family was pulling its financial support, a deliberate portfolio decision rather than a falling out or a scandal. It is a rare glimpse of hard-nosed business logic hiding inside a story usually told through pure nostalgia, the kind of decision most families never make because the emotional cost feels too heavy to justify on a spreadsheet. Loyalty took the club from nothing to a genuinely competitive program for years running. But loyalty alone does not sustain an investment forever. And the willingness to walk away, even from something this personal, says as much about his financial discipline as any contract he has ever signed. Reallocating capital, even sentimental capital, is a skill most people never actually develop. Jokic apparently has it, and he applied it without a single public statement explaining why. Fourth on the list is the piece that rarely makes a highlight reel but shapes an entire country's basketball future for decades to come. Since establishing his foundation in 2022, Jokic has funded the construction of courts and sports facilities across Serbia, aimed squarely at kids who look exactly like he once did, undersized, overlooked, playing on cracked concrete with no real path forward and no scout ever driving out to watch them. During the early days of the global pandemic, he quietly funneled roughly $500,000 into his hometown hospital in Sombor, covering ventilators, protective equipment, and facility upgrades, without a press conference and without a single sponsored social media post to mark the moment. It never generated headlines the way a sneaker drop or a courtside appearance would. That silence was the point. This is the investment that does not show up on a balance sheet the way a stock portfolio does, yet it may be the one with the longest runway of them all. Every court he funds, every scholarship his foundation quietly issues, plants the seed for the next undrafted kid from a small, forgotten town to make an NBA roster someday. And every future player who does inherits the same platform he built, brick by brick, without ever once asking to be thanked for it. Now the biggest reveal, the one that finally explains everything else on this list. Ask anyone who has actually watched Jokic during the offseason, and they will tell you the same thing without hesitation. Basketball is the job. Horses are the obsession, and increasingly, the real business. His stable, named Dreamcatcher after the very first horse he ever purchased as a young player, competes across Serbia's harness racing circuit, a sport where jockeys ride in a small cart pulled behind the horse rather than sitting directly on its back. He fell in love with the sport at age 12 after his father took him to a local race day, and he reportedly spent 6 full years mucking out stalls at a hometown track before basketball ever paid him a single dollar. That early apprenticeship still shows today. Dreamcatcher now fields multiple horses across a full competitive calendar, drawing crowds of more than 5,000 spectators at marquee events like the Duizhanka at the Subotica Hippodrome, where his horses have won back-to-back editions, first with a horse named Demon Delist, then again with one named Delicious Gar. He has openly said horse racing is the best sport in the world, and friends close to him say he considers the stable his real world, the one place where the global fame finally falls away completely. Financially, Serbia's harness racing industry moves real money every single year, drawing sponsors, breeders, and gamblers into a circuit that operates almost entirely outside the American sports conversation. And insiders around the sport openly predict Jokic could become a full-time trainer once his playing career eventually ends. What began as a childhood hobby cleaning stalls for free has become a genuine second career track, one he is reportedly already preparing to lean into once the Denver Nuggets uniform comes off for the final time. Step back and look at the full five, and a pattern emerges that most athlete profiles completely miss. There is no venture capital fund here, No crypto exchange. No celebrity-owned tequila competing for shelf space with a dozen other athlete brands nobody will remember in 5 years. Instead, there is land bought with intention, a beverage brand tied to actual heritage, a youth sports club supported for years until it no longer made clear financial sense to support, a hospital funded without a single camera in sight, and a horse stable that has quietly become both a genuine passion and a legitimate second profession waiting on the other side of retirement. Every one of these 5 moves points back to the same zip code, the same province, the same small town most of his own fans could not have located on a map before this story. That is not an accident. It is a philosophy, built one quiet decision at a time, and it explains why so few people outside his home country ever noticed any of it happening in real time. There was no press release for the land, no launch event for the Jokić stake, no announcement when the club's funding quietly stopped. The only investment he has ever publicly celebrated with real emotion is the one involving an animal crossing a finish line in front of 5,000 strangers who came to watch for free. Even his contract negotiations carry that same unmistakable texture. Jokić has already signaled he plans to sign a new deal with Denver next summer, one that could push past $350 million over 5 years, and he described the decision in blunt, almost businesslike terms, calling it strictly business-oriented while making clear his personal preference is simply to stay exactly where he already is. No dramatic free agency tour, no manufactured trade rumors designed purely to inflate his leverage. Just the same steady approach he has applied to every dollar he has ever earned off the court, one small commitment at a time. At 31, with 3 Most Valuable Player awards, 1 NBA championship, and a Supermax contract behind him, Nikola Jokic has built a financial identity that looks nothing like his sport's modern norm. He has done it without a publicist pushing the story, without a single viral investment announcement, and largely without anyone outside Serbia noticing until right now, in a league where most stars treat every business decision as content before it even closes. The Joker has always made the extraordinary pass look ordinary. It turns out he has been running the exact same play with his money the entire time, and the assist once again lands perfectly in the hands of whoever is finally paying attention.